Hello and welcome to today's webinar, organized and sponsored by the UNESCO Chair on Intercultural Competence, hosted at Stellenbosch University in South Africa. We are so glad you are here, and we invite each of you to introduce yourselves in chat as I give a brief introduction to the UNESCO Chair. So we'll start with sharing just a few slides about the UNESCO Chair for those who are not familiar with our chair. And then we'll have our speakers, and then at the end there will be some time for some discussion and some question and answer. So today is one of our webinars in our monthly series on exploring intercultural competence from African perspectives. Through this monthly webinar series, we are keen to explore and understand more from various African perspectives about intercultural competence from perspectives on the continent. And this is very important because so much of the work around intercultural competence has come from the global north. And our chair, one of the main goals of our UNESCO chair is to identify, elevate, and explore African voices, perspectives, and practices around intercultural competence on the continent. So I am joined today as a team. My name is Darla Deerdorf. I'm the chair holder of this UNESCO chair. But we will also, we have a whole team as part of the chair. And so as you'll see here, there are also two co-chairs, Dr. Precious Semba and Dr. Davinia Jitu, who you'll be hearing from soon. We are also pleased to have an operational coordinator, Werner de Wit, and some team leads at Stellenbosch, Rabia Abba Omar, Nsibu Isa, and Sarah Richmond, along with many others who help make the work of this chair possible. We are prioritizing three key areas of the Sustainable Development Goals, those of gender, climate, and peace building. And we are very keen to look at the intersections and role of intercultural competence in each of these three. And as I mentioned, as part of our work as a chair, we have this webinar series every month. We hope you'll join us again next month in June, and Davinia will be sharing with you more about the details on that. And we also have an annual in-person intercultural conference that is hosted by some of our partners on the continent. We had our inaugural conference in Nairobi this past October, and we'll have our upcoming conference in Morocco later this year. Also part of what we do is UNESCO Story Circles, and that is a way to build capacity around intercultural competence. And we are very pleased to share UNESCO Story Circles with any group, and taking this out across South Africa and the continent and beyond. This is available through an open access manual from UNESCO in 7 different languages. You'll see the link on the screen. And it takes around 90 minutes to run these amazing and impactful UNESCO Story Circles, which are done in groups of 4 to 6 people, and we can do them in person or online. We invite you to learn more about those, and UNESCO also has an introductory video of 2 minutes available to learn more about UNESCO Story Circles. So that is something also that our chair is doing in terms of capacity building around intercultural competence. So with that, we invite you to continue introducing yourselves in the chat. And we also invite you to join the World Council on Intercultural and Global Competence, which is a partner to this UNESCO chair. You simply complete a brief online form. It's free to join. And there you will find more than 20 different working groups, including an ICC in Africa working group, which is helping to sponsor this webinar series. And they'll be meeting next week for further discussion around this webinar that you will be hearing today. So we hope all of you will join us again next week at the ICC in Africa Working Group for further discussion on today's webinar. So without further ado, I would like to introduce you now to our co-chair, one of our co-chairs, Dr. Davinia Jitu, who is based at Durban University of Technology, also in South Africa. And she will share with us a little bit more about the chair and then also our speakers for today. Over to you, Davinia.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Darla. And thank you to all of the participants who have joined our webinar today. So I'd just like to highlight some of our upcoming events. Of course, our big event is the UNESCO Chair on Intercultural Competence, our conference taking place in Rabat. Our call for proposals is now closed, and we are very excited to see the program come together and to be able to share that with everyone soon. And then also just to highlight our next webinar happening in June. And this is in partnership with Leah and Desmond Tutu Foundation. And the topic is Nurturing Hope in Challenging Times, How We Build Courageous Leadership for Humanity. And I think, you know, this topic is quite important given the times that we are living in now. So before we go into introducing our speakers, I'd like to introduce you to our conversation facilitator today, Christina Kusenza. She is an anthropologist and cultural professional with experience in the fields of cultural policy and development, currently contributing to the coordination of UNESCO's intersectoral team on culture and education at UNESCO headquarters. In line with the Intersectoral Program 1, Learning for Diversity, she was previously based in Nairobi in Kenya at the UNESCO Regional Office for Eastern Africa, providing technical assistance to 13 countries to implement measures to preserve their cultural and national heritage, safeguard intangible cultural heritage practices, museum collections, as well as to promote dynamic cultural sectors through policy support, capacity building, and partnership development, including in the context of emergencies. She has also contributed to the implementation of different UNESCO projects to promote the rights and linguistic and cultural heritage of Indigenous peoples, as well as initiatives supporting countries to advance peace and human rights education. She has an academic background in social sciences and cultural anthropology. So I'd like to hand over to her to introduce our two speakers for today's webinar. Thank you. Over to you, Christina.
Thank you so much, Divinia, and thank you, Darla, really for hosting us. And happy International Arts Education Week. We are organizing this webinar, of course, also in the framework of international initiative. So I would like to really thank Stellenbosch University for hosting us today. And also I'm really excited to give the floor very soon to our two speakers for today. So we have Chief Moomen from Ghana, who's a poet, he's a playwright, he's a cultural entrepreneur. He will tell you more about the work he does, but through play and theater and different cultural expressions, he really promotes understanding and awareness of Africa's history through an African perspective, and also, of course, through the arts, so making it engaging and accessible. And also Jill Pribyl, who is the UNESCO chair at the University of Kisubi in Uganda, who, of course, is UNESCO chair on Dance for Global Citizenship Education, which is a very innovative field. And she works on very exciting projects with her students and the communities as well in Uganda to promote intercultural competencies through movement and dance and creative expression. So first of all, I would like to give the floor to each of you to introduce yourself and explain the work you do to promote culture and arts education. I just want to mention briefly that this conversation also happens in the framework of UNESCO's work at the intersection of culture and education. And you may know that UNESCO has been long involved in these discussions to how to how to promote the integration of culture and the arts in education, whether it's formal, non-formal, or informal. And a major recent development has been the adoption of the UNESCO framework for culture and arts education. I'm going to add a link in the chat so that you can learn more. But really, the idea is that this framework is really a tool that helps stakeholders of different types, so whether policymakers or practitioners or academics or experts like you, to put into practice the vision behind the framework, which is really that culture and the arts contribute to enhancing the quality of education, its inclusiveness, and of course, and really contribute to sustainable development and more peaceful societies. But I'm not here to do a presentation on UNESCO's work. I just want to say that this conversation happens also within this framework, because we've been working very closely both with Jill and with Chief Moomen in the framework of this program. So without further ado, let me maybe first give the floor, ladies first, to Jill, who you may wish to introduce yourself, explain a little bit the work you do and how it contributes to the development of intercultural competencies. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Christina. And thank you to the University of Stellenbosch for hosting this webinar. We really appreciate having the platform to share what we're doing in our different contexts and on the continent. So I'm Jill Pribyl and I work at University of Kasubi. I've been appointed chair for dance education for global citizenship. And I have been working in this field for many, many years, co-directing a program with New York University where graduate students come over and collaborate with University of Kasubi students and create lesson plans and that they develop together and then share to children. So I've learned quite a bit over my 18 years, which in developing this program and working in this program and evaluating this program. So we have been able to see in action how dance can really transform individual lives through this movement expression and learning different cultural forms. So I'm happy to be here. And I'm really excited to share some of these ideas with you. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining. And I'm also interested in continuing the dialogue. So thank you, Christina and Darla and everyone else at Stellenbosch for this opportunity.
Thank you, Jill. And then we can go into the details of what you do very soon. Let me give the floor to Chief Moomen to introduce yourself and, of course, the work you do. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Yes, Chief Moomen is the name. I'm a poet, a playwright, and a creative entrepreneur. So I like to think of myself as a storyteller. I've been in practice in the arts for about 2 decades now. I started off, as a spoken word artist, jumping from one stage to another. And then I started producing epic theatrical productions. My work usually focuses on history and heritage. And so my themes, my plot, pick in history. So I tell historical stories, historical fiction, and bring them to life. Since 2015, we started a project called Heritage Theatre Series that sought to bring Ghanaian history on stage, as a tool to educate people, to educate and empower people. And we went on an audacious attempt to do historical epics. So our plays usually have about 150, performers on stage. We have the choir, the dancers, the actors, the singers. So it's really a total theater, bringing different art forms into a very immersive experience. And then in 2018, we launched a project called the Mansa World. And so what we're doing with Ghanaian history, we started doing with African history. And so the focus of the Mansa World is to bring African history to life, through different artistic productions, starting with theater, which is our current competitive advantage, and then into film, into comics, into animation, into experiences. And what we are seeking to do is to highlight the different regions of Africa in our storytelling. And currently we are focusing on West Africa, and we see this as an intergenerational project. And so maybe 20 years from doing this, we feel that we'll become one of the biggest platforms in platforming African history and culture on the global stage. And we're very happy to be working with UNESCO under its General History of Africa project, which, is a series of publications that was put together on African history. And we are using that as part of our major source material to then produce popular content out of it. What we seek to do is really to foster, first of all, an understanding of African culture and heritage amongst Africans and peoples of African descent around the world, and also the rest of the world. And through our productions to hope to, build a sense of solidarity and commonality, to understand that as a human species, when you really trace our origins, we're all connected in one way or the other, whether biologically, or culturally. And so our work at the highest level is really a celebration of our humanity. And I'm very excited to be on this platform and to share our experiences and our knowledge, and also to hear from you, and also to share the stage with Jill and all of you. So thank you.
Thank you, Chief, and thank you also, of course, for mentioning your partnership with UNESCO in the framework of the General History of Africa program, which is really a priority for us. And I think your voice really is really significant in amplifying the message and of telling African history from an African perspective. I would like to maybe ask Chief, maybe you had a video that you wanted to screen. Would you like to screen it now or later? You're muted.
I will scream it later once the conversation starts. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So let me go into the conversation. So I think, Jill, if we can start with you. So based on your experience, how can dance and movement be used to promote intercultural understanding? This is both in formal and non-formal settings. And maybe while you explain that, you can present some concrete examples where really you saw a shift in terms of intercultural awareness among your students. So thank you.
Thank you, Christina. So yes, as I had mentioned earlier, I've lived in Uganda for many, many years and have become a dual citizen of Uganda and the US, and have running intercultural programs for many years. I think that movement has an advantage to intercultural competencies because it is a language of the body, and it's something that is embodied, and it's not something that you have to explain and know a language in order to participate in the dialogue of the movement. So through these intercultural exchanges, we've been able to learn dances, teach traditional Ugandan dances to non-Ugandans. And we've also been able to experience other types of movement that people have shared with Ugandan students. And I do think that in a way, movement is so telling of who you are as a person and as a mover, because you as a mover bring your own cultural history and understandings within your movement language and vocabulary. So I've seen dancers trying on different movements, and some with huge success and others with a lot of trepidation and needing a lot of encouragement to do different movements that are really outside of their comfort zone. But what I have found and what I have witnessed is that students, when they can embody another movement, there is a dialogue that begins to happen between dancers of two different cultures. And this dialogue seems to bring them to a nonverbal understanding, which helps to then develop into more verbal conversations as well. I'll give you an example of one of the exercises we've been doing in an educational setting for Ugandan and students from New York University. So in a higher education setting. So we have asked for people to get to know each other, we have asked them to take a walk outside and find something that they both find something in the environment that they both see as familiar and something that they see as unfamiliar, that they have to agree on. Of course, this takes language into account, but then they come back into the studio and start to create movement phrases based on those ideas. Then they learn each other's movement phrases, and then this has turned into dance pieces that they perform together. And you see, I have seen this idea of students really starting to connect through these stories, the stories around the objects, and then the movement emerging from these stories around the objects, and what they find familiar and unfamiliar tends to bring them together in a way that maybe they wouldn't have dialogue in another by asking just general questions. So that's twofold. One is the looking at what we find that is what we have in common and not in common, and then moving through those through movement stories tend to bring people together in a more significant way. I also want to talk a little bit about how these experiences have a shift in people, and not just in terms of possibly visitors coming to Uganda, but I had a student that was from northern Uganda, and northern Uganda was in war for many, many years. And many of these people from northern Uganda are displaced and have lived in Kampala and really are completely unfamiliar with their culture. They experience their culture, but not in a firsthand kind of a way. So we had a teacher from northern Uganda come and teach a dance and give his stories of being in northern Uganda and being in the war. And this impacted her profoundly. And then we also took everyone, because we do everything together with the Ugandan students as well as the New York students. We went to see a cultural group called Watman Cultural Group, and they specifically create dances from northern Uganda. They present dances in Kampala. So they're all displaced Acholi people from northern Uganda. When she went to experience that performance, she had to get up and start dancing because she had learned these dances in an educational context, but not really from the root of the people that have performed these dances. And after the performance, she cried and said that this like bringing people to actually witness her cultural dances, but also experience her cultural dances in the context outside her culture had a profound effect on informing who she was and how she has navigated the world based on this kind of insider-outsider perspectives. So I do think that dance is an inroad to these different competencies, and that they can serve as an inroad to people's experiences and having that profound way of not even really knowing that you're having that experience. You're dancing, but then afterwards, the reflection on the dance is what provides that ability to dialogue with people, to have a deeper understanding of what a culture is about because you've experienced their dance. I also think more in an informal setting, when we do visit different facilities or organizations and people dance for us when we show up, if our students dance with the community members, that also creates this, it just breaks the barrier that language cannot, and allows us then to begin to dialogue. So a couple of things, I guess, that takeaways is one, that movement is a language, and it is a specific language to whoever is doing it. And when you try on a movement, it may be comfortable, it may not, but it will present you as an individual with the experiences to see a shift in yourself. So I think movement in and of itself can help you shift your perspective. And secondly, I do think that movement is a way to engage with a culture without language. So even if you don't know the language and you try on a movement within a culture, I do think that it gives you as the mover a sense of respect from the culture, that you had the courage to do something that may not be comfortable for you. And from that, a deeper dialogue can start to occur, and we can build on these competencies.
Thank you so much, Jill. That's a really, thank you also for sharing this story. And It's a really powerful message. I really like the expression you used to embody another movement. I think it's hard even to express with words how movement and dance can be really powerful to experience another perspective, another point of view, another culture. So it's really interesting to hear from you, since this is what you have been doing. You've been promoting throughout your career. So really, thank you for that. I'll come back to you. And of course, Chief, now I would like to turn to you. Of course, Ghana and Uganda are very different contexts. So let's go to the other side of Africa. So I would like to ask you, how do projects like okay, I have a problem. Please help me with the,
It's titled Work Bejeke, but the main title is Heritage Theatre Series and the Mansa World, so that's fine.
Okay, thank you. So how does it contribute to the development of intercultural competencies, cultural awareness among youth audiences, but also the performers themselves in Ghana? So, at the national level, but also like, with audiences that are from Ghana and from other countries, other places in the world. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the question. I think that to be able to provide a sufficient answer to this question, I would want to reflect on my own journey and how I was able to develop my own intercultural competence, because my journey connects very much to actually what I'm doing today. So I grew up in a very typical communal African environment. My father migrated from the northern part of Ghana to the capital city and so he was one of the first people to migrate to the capital city from our region. And so our house became a gateway for anyone who was coming from our region. That would be like their first stop. And so I grew up with aunties and cousins and distant relatives and strangers, some people that we didn't even know. They would just here, come to this man's house. You have a place to sleep and something to eat. And so growing up in that very bubbly communal environment, kind of like gave me a particular grounding in appreciating diversity very early on. And my mother was a storyteller. She used to tell us, stories a lot when we were growing up. That was one of her ways of passing on knowledge and traditions and values, right? So usually in the evenings and early mornings after prayer, she would tell us stories. And so growing up, listening to that, my mom's story, echoing through my mind, and then within the context of this rather bubbly environment where there was never a dull moment, people were arguing, talking, laughing, crying. So it was really the great slice of the human experience. So growing up in that communal environment, growing up being nurtured by my mom to become a storyteller. I didn't obviously know I would become a storyteller then. And so when I started growing up and I started, taking an interest in literature, and I remember when I was about 9 years old, I watched the performance of Maya Angelou, the American poet. In Ghana, she used to come to Ghana a lot. And so for one of our major festivals, she had come. I was watching on black and white TV and she was doing her famous poem, "You May Write Me Down with History, with Your Bitter Twisted Lies." And for me, that was a moment of awakening, an understanding of this art form, essentially. So combining that awakening with what my mom used to do and that environment that I found myself in, somehow when I started, applying for courses and going to schools, I just did literature courses, I did poetry, I did drama and all of that. So that's the context of where I have come from. And today, when I look at what I do, when you look at the epics that I create and the community I have on stage, I can only but connect it, to where I came from, right? So because my productions are a riot of color, of voices, of laughter, of sorrow. And it's almost akin, to that environment that nurtured me, to that communal environment that nurtured me, right? And they also have this kind of poetic cadence that I feel that I inherited from that kind of storytelling tradition. So I guess the main point I want to make is that by growing up, in such a diverse background, I was able to develop what I would call intracultural competence. And through that intracultural competence, I think that it opened up my mind to the idea of human diversity. And so when I was in school, one of my favorite subject was history. I used to spend a lot of time reading the encyclopedia, traveling through time and place, different cultures, all the way from ancient, Egypt to Greece, to Rome, to Asia, and all over the world, to Arabia, and also through Africa. So I guess that appreciation of diversity very early on in my upbringing informed my academic journey in opening up myself to history and learning more about people and places. So my poetry, for example, I draw a lot from different cultures when I'm telling my stories, to create this human mosaic. And even with theater, even though we started with a Ghanaian story, we are now doing the African story. I know that in my trajectory as an artist, I'm going to tell the world story, through my art forms. And so I think that storytelling has a way of shaping, who we are and how we engage and interact with the world. And I see very important examples of that, especially from our context. There in Africa has the most diverse, ethnicity in the world. Thousands, about 2,000 languages, thousands of ethnic backgrounds. So there's still a lot of ethnic tensions, even in peaceful countries like Ghana. One of the things that provides a platform for synergy, a platform for unity, and a platform for peace and engagement is through arts. When people come together, to engage in storytelling, productions, whether it is music, whether it is theater, whether it is dance, art has become more or less like a lifesaver. And I can use our neighbors as an example. Nigeria is a country that has very, rife ethnic tensions across the country, the north, the east, and the middle belt. But one platform that they find a sense of nationhood, a sense of unity is through their art. And so today, Nigerian art is one of the most domineering art forms out of Africa. Their music, Afrobeat, is being appreciated around the world, right? And creating an appreciation of even the Nigerian nation beyond the stereotypes that we may be used to, right? Their movies are some of the most popular movies out of Africa. And when they are projecting these things, they don't project them as this is a Igbo or a Yoruba movie, or it is a Nigerian music, is a Nigerian movie, right? And so through those art forms, internally, we're able to build our own intracultural competence. We're able to detoxify, I would say, that our relationships. And then through what we export to the rest of the world, we create a great understanding. For me, we are very much aware of the fact that Africa today has a particular stereotype, poverty, disease, and historically slave trade. That's just one aspect of the story. Chimamanda warns us against the danger of the single story, right? If you have one aspect of a story that is projected and known by the world, it is harmful to the development of the continent because the world engages with us on those terms. So Africa only needs aid and not just trade. And so as an artist, one of the things that we want to do in terms of building global intercultural competence is also to platform African stories in such a way as would, complicate the viewpoints of Africa around the world, so that that, look, Africa is also a continent with the largest youth population. There's great opportunity. There's peace, in a lot of African countries, human development. Even sometimes when we look at development as contentment, you find that, the index of happiness may even be higher in some African countries than in some Western countries, right? And so how do we also use the arts? How do we use culture to complicate global worldviews of the continent in a way as to open greater opportunities? Because maybe you're thinking of investing in Africa, you're afraid of all the stereotypes that you hear. Some people don't even believe that there is development. Some people still think, unfortunately, that people live in trees. And that's stark ignorance that we have to challenge. And the only way we can do so is using arts and culture, to promote what we do and our people. And to end, I would say that one of the things we are very particular about is children. And so in all my productions, we've always been very particular about engaging young minds with our production, because once you engage young minds, you're able to inspire them just like how I was inspired. So when I look at how I was inspired as a young child, to be able to do all that I'm doing today, to have an appreciation of my world that I have today, I feel it is absolutely crucial that through art and culture education, we're able to inspire and mold the young ones who become, the future leaders. And so we have been very deliberate about doing theater productions for students. And one of the things I've been very deliberate about, because my productions are huge epics, they are expensive, and so access can be prohibitive. You have to be able to pay to watch it. And so sometimes when you want to give a theatrical experience to maybe a rural community, you have to dump it down, smaller cast. So one of the things that we have been working towards is that how do we give the same level of quality as we do. Currently, what we do is that when we have major productions, we have a day before where we do a student show, and then we invite schools around the neighborhood to come and watch. Some of them, the international schools who pay, and then the government schools who don't pay to come and watch. And so we're exploring that model. And one of the things that we're planning to launch next year is what we call the mobile theater, where we fit, these huge trailers and we just go from community to community, set up and run our productions the way we run them at the National Theater. I think that just the example of some child in some faraway village, sitting and watching epic theatrical productions, would inspire them and kick something in their mind that can have ripple effects down the line. And so I want younger people to have the experience I had in a way when I was growing up, especially now that, our communities are changing in rural Africa. Most of the young people are migrating to the urban centers. The urban centers are so choked. So we don't have the authentic rural education that, we grew up having. And we also don't have a better hybrid form, in our urban centers. So we're missing out of the best of both worlds. And so how do we bridge that? Yeah, I know I'm a storyteller, I'm a poet, so I talk a lot. And so I would end here and allow for the conversation to proceed.
No, we love listening to you, and I still remember the first time I saw you was on the stage on the for the World Conference on Culture and Education in Abu Dhabi last year, where you enchanted the big audience. So I'm sure our participants will be as interested also, and I'm sure they have many questions for you. Would you like to showcase some of
Yes. So this was from our latest show that we did at the National Theatre, and before we did a public show, we took advantage of that to open our technical rehearsals to students to come and see the production, and this is just a view of it.
Student edition, special edition for schools.
Chief, I'm sorry, we're not able to see your screen. Are you sharing?
From those who came to see the show. We don't hear the songs. Hello.
Chief, sorry, we can't see your screen.
That I think is the greatest of all time. What is favorite part in the play? When Mansa Musa came.
Can you hear us, Chief?
Things that you read in class as well. When they're making jokes and when the funny guy said there's no Wi-Fi in the car, that's what I like. I really enjoyed the drama. It was really.
Okay, I think he cannot hear us.
Yeah, there seems to be a bit of a technical issue. Chief, are you able to hear us? Okay, apologies to everyone. The video was working before. Chief, we weren't able to see your video.
Sorry, I think the mistake was that I was actually playing it without sharing it. I just realized. My apologies. So I was just watching it alone. I was just so excited. So now I'm coming to share it. My apologies.
Okay.
Thank you.
I was actually just watching it alone. Sorry. You can see my screen now, right?
Yes.
Okay, my apologies.
Thank you.
Chief, we're not able to hear the sound now.
Schools, and as you can see, we have so many schools here, and we're just going to take some reactions from those who came to see the show. We don't hear the songs. Hello, everyone. I just finished watching the Mansa Musa period, and I think it's the greatest of all time. What is favorite part in the play? When Mansa Musa came, I like the spectacle and everything. It was really nice. You got to see a lot of things about history, and you got to learn about things that you read in class as well. When they're making jokes and when the funny guy said there's no Wi-Fi in the car, that's what I like. I really enjoyed the drama. It was really interesting, and then the way the characters came up was so lovely. I love the show, and I love everything about the show. My favorite part of the show was when Kumangu and Cynthia had to start. I really like the dedication of the cast, the crew, sound effects, the lighting, especially the special effects. When the flame came up, I felt in my face. It was really great. Amazing kind of work done here. So I would like to commend all the people working on this. It was amazing. It's amazing. The costumes were out of this world. The music was fantastic. I recommend it to everybody.
Thank you. Thank you so much for
Thank
that.
you.
And if you would like to maybe even share in the chat some links to, you know, your webpage or social media, that would be fantastic.
Sure.
Maybe before we turn to the speakers, I wanted to go back to Jill to ask you one more question, because Chief was talking about the importance of accessibility and inclusion of you know, what we call culture and arts education. So in your case, of course, dance and movement, and I was wondering how in your work you ensure that you know, that the projects are and the studies, the education is accessible to everyone, or to as many as possible in Uganda. Thank you.
Yes. Okay, thank you for the question. And thank you, Chief, for the lovely talk. I mean, I should be moving instead of talking, and you are a great talker. So, yes, I mean, we try to work with community organizations. We invite children to free workshops and give them the opportunity to explore movement through themes. So, for example, our last show we did with our cultural exchange with New York University was the theme of environment. And the children were able to create pieces based on, you know, what they chose related to the environment. So we try to give them as many children the opportunity. We've also gone into schools and taught through different themes. We would like to, of course, expand this, but as you know, like, funding is always the issue, but we try to give children as many opportunities. So we're trying to teach critical and creative thinking skills, as well as link to issues within, especially global warming and peace initiatives and intercultural competencies through these larger themes. So we try to go into a school, pick a theme, and have children, through facilitation, create their own dance pieces. And this could be based on familiar movements, unfamiliar movements, through prompts. But we would like to do this more on a national level and have a showcase that we go into different communities and work on a more national level. And I like your idea, Chief, of like the intergenerational idea of it as well, and the stories. And one thing that the University of Kasubi students are working on right now is telling stories of late musicians throughout Uganda and throughout Africa. So they're looking at taking the music from people who have passed, and then creating movement pieces based on that music, like Pata Pata, everyone knows, Miriam Makeba, and then also doing a drama piece where they explain the struggles she went through and her experience as a musician, so that we can also bridge this gap of what is the history. And we know the song, but we don't know the history behind the song. We don't know the struggle of where that song came from, and how do we bring that song to life through movement. So I think it's a similar initiative. And then through that program, we hope to then travel to different districts throughout Uganda and be able to share that, probably in English, but also in various languages that are available that people, I mean, there are 52 tribes in Uganda, so the language barrier is huge. So if we could translate these monologues into various languages, I think that would also be great. And maybe look for actors within those local communities to work with us and learn these monologues and be able to perform them to these audiences of children. And I think that's another way we're trying to bridge that gap. And we're doing similar things, so we should find a way to work together.
Absolutely. We're one of the things everything I do is diversity of the art form, and then diversity of the people. And so we're looking to build a Pan-African, troupe. And currently we only have who are available to us in Africa, but in Ghana, but as we expand. And I think that through this conversation, I'd like to actually visit Uganda. It's long overdue. I have a lot of friends, and you can. And because I work with theater, I work with choreography. So dance is an important art form in what we do, and choreography is just beautiful. I can't dance to save my life, but at least the choreography.
No, thanks. And actually, this is really the purpose of this conversation, and to really connect, you know, all fantastic organizations and, you know, practitioners like you, and ensure that, you know, you're aware of, you know, all the brilliant initiatives going on in Africa and beyond, and create these, you know, these partnerships, these collaborations. So why not? And actually, yeah, just to, before turning to the audience, I just wanted to ask one last question to Chief. Maybe you can tell us a little bit, also related to what you were just saying. Of course, we know that in this field, very often, you know, training of teachers, or, you know, theater or actors, for instance, I mean, or cultural practitioners that train, is a challenge. And so I'm just wondering, in your work, how do you ensure that, you know, actors, performers are trained also to transmit sometimes very powerful but delicate and difficult messages also, you know, in a way that is kind of respectful and also engaging. Thank
Great
you.
conversation, great question. So first of all, I work in partnership with the University of Ghana with the School of Performing Arts and with the Institute of African Studies. So actually a lot of I'm a product of the School of Performing Arts as well as the Department of Music, English. And so a lot of my professors are still very much mentors to our project. A lot of our directors are actually lecturers. So for example, our director of music is the head of music department at the School of Performing Arts. You know, our senior director is a senior lecturer at the School of Performing Arts. We work closely with the Institute of African Studies, which is a research, you know, kind of like institute into African knowledge systems and culture. And that partnership is even becoming stronger. And so we are also grounded in scholarship, and we are grounded in the scholars who take a deep interest in our work. And so we even have a platform of patrons where a lot of these people are, and we have day-to-day conversations on how to, how do we project our story? You know, when you're dealing with sensitive topics like slave trade, for example, how do you sell the slave trade story that does not continue to uphold the trauma, but also you're fair to the facts, right? And it's empowering to our people and our people of African diaspora. But also it's a lifelong learning process as an artist and as the creator, also because of how I have essentially opened myself to a lot of knowledge and cultures and understanding. I'm always, doing the balancing act in my mind, because at the end of the day, as an artist, you're the one producing the art, and it's ultimately your perspective. But I would say that in terms of the competence of it, we have professionals who help to train us, and we have regular conversations. So before we start any production, we sit down with the cast and crew, and as the creator, they ask me questions. They want to know, what were you thinking when you're writing this character, these plot lines, so I'm able to transmit my perspective. But they also, as performers, bring their perspectives that sometimes and interpret characters in a way that you, even the playwright, you don't even think of, and all of that adds to the richness of the material. So even with my own production, I'm still learning, so I watch the production, I watch the way the directors or the actors interpret a particular line or a particular scene, and it gives me further ideas to say, okay, I didn't look at it this way, this is interesting, I'm going to develop this further in my next series. So it's collaborative, but we are grounded in scholarship, and we have good professionals who support the process.
Thank you for that. And really this, I think also, Jill, you were mentioning that, I mean, this is the beauty, the transformative power of the arts, and it's really each of us, experiences it or embodies it in a different way, absorbing, taking the message that really reflects us. And also changes us. So I think we could continue for hours, and this is really an inspiring conversation. Maybe I see Divinia is here. I think we are turning now to the Q&A. I let you a little bit guide us on that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Christina. I just want to share one quick slide that shows us the Padlet. And I want to encourage everyone to, because this is new to our webinar series and a way for us to kind of enhance the engagement around the topic. And we have this Padlet that we've set up for you to post your comments and your thoughts. But we'd also like you to do this via the chat, or even, unmute and speak to us about the topic today. So I'd like to open up, we've posted this link into the chat, but I'd like to open up for some questions, comments live around the really informative presentations we've received from Chief and Joel today around art and intercultural competence, movement, and cultural context. So yeah, anyone, please go ahead. You really don't have to raise your hands. You can just unmute and go for it.
Hi,
Divinia.
Yeah.
I will let Ining go. I can always ask
Yes.
much later. Yes, I had shared my question in the Padlet anyway. Yes.
Okay, thanks, Precious. Who was it that wanted to unmute and go ahead?
Oh, hi everyone. My name is I'm
Please
a
go ahead.
PhD student from Southern Illinois University in the United States. I'm Ghanaian, and so I appreciated Chief Moomen's contributions on storytelling and its impact in Africa and all that stuff. So I'm kind of thinking about policies and practices in the Ghanaian context, and I'm curious to know what are some of the challenges that Chief has faced so far in trying to send this message out there, and in the same way try to build intercultural communication competence through education. What are some of the challenges in the Ghanaian context in terms of policies, practices that you have experienced so far, and what do you think the way forward is in terms of suggestions that you think can make this work easier for us to try to help build intercultural communication competence, do storytelling, and what you do? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Quick response. So now there's a lot of concern in Ghana about the fact that arts and culture education is not taken as seriously as we used to. Growing up, there used to be opportunities to do cultural dance, drama, and all of that. And then as time went on, these became de-emphasized, especially in our public school system. But there's now a clamor, for that to come back into the system. And I think that's one of the work that UNESCO is pushing through its framework for arts and culture education. How do we streamline art and culture within the curriculum, that we have in our schools? I would say that in my experience, the international schools actually do that very well. They actually have the facilities and they are very particular about arts and culture education. So a lot of our cast and crew members actually do work with them. And so they run training programs, like they run cultural, workshops for these international schools. The main problem is when it comes to the government schools, the public schools, which also are the places where most of the students you'd find them in, where the facilities are usually even not there, so where do you do a school play, for example, in a public school? I don't know of any public school that probably has a space that has a drama. Maybe you have to do it outside or something like that, right? So there's the policy, there's the infrastructure issue. One of the things that we're working towards, and with UNESCO in Ghana, as well as with our partners at the University of Ghana, is that we're planning to have our own kind of like space, within the university community called the Mansell World Vision Center. And the idea is that how do we make this a community center? So if you can have 100 schools having 100 facilities, can you have a facility, in a central location that they can have access to? So on a weekly basis, you are running cultural programs for them, then you bus them in, and we use students and staff within the university, the School of Performing Arts, to provide those training programs, because the university also has courses to train students to teach, And so that's one of the things that we're trying to experiment, especially for our public school systems. If we cannot give each school the best facility, can we at least have a satellite facility that a number of schools can connect to, so that they can also experience, using world-class theater facilities, dance studios, music equipment, and all of that. And that's one of the major things we're working towards. And we're just in the process of finalizing that partnership with the University of Ghana. But I think that going forward, really it will be about streamlining arts and culture within our curriculum and make it and provide and having even the human resource to teach it. Usually too, that's the challenge, you know, the human resource to teach it. And I think that for me, going forward, the best and most pragmatic way is to have satellite campuses or institutions where at least we can connect a number of schools, and then as our economy grows, we're able to expand facilities across all schools.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Chief. We have another question in the chat, and this is posed for Jill, and it's from Margaret, saying that movement or dance is a language. This is what Jill said, and in her culture, it's used to be spoken by everyone, right from home, spontaneously as a way of expression through cultural dances. And today you hardly find them in home environments as a way of expression. They have been left to professionals and schools and public events. Why don't you think it has affected appreciation of these dances?
Yeah, that's a great question and a great observation. Yes, I do think it has really affected the perception. Now, in Uganda, there are festivals. There's cultural dance and drama and theater festivals that happen in the primary and secondary levels. So this happens throughout schools countrywide, and they come together for a competition. So that has instilled some cultural pride, and a lot of times students will perform dances from their particular district or region. So I don't think, I mean, that I do. I mean, I think in a way that helps with that feeling of pride, but in another way, because there's so much social media and hip hop and et cetera, that kind of has started to take over. Although there are many groups in Uganda working towards incorporating, looking at traditional dances and how this has influenced or expanded hip hop and breakdance. So there are ways people are trying to connect. But I do think, as Chief said, with so many young people moving to urban areas, that indigenous knowledge really gets lost. And that's something that we are taking into consideration in our academic program as well. How can we preserve that knowledge? And as you were saying, Chief, those stories, I mean, those elder stories that are being lost because youth are not engaging with elders anymore. So that's another project we're trying to start, where youth and elders come together. The elders tell their stories, and we start to create new games, movement games that are played on playgrounds where that elder knowledge is told and incorporated into daily life. So it's not something that is old and that isn't current. And it's something that can be changing and evolving all the time, because our cultures aren't static. They're always changing, and movement is also changing as well. So the professional companies that are creating and performing traditional dances are changing the dances as well based on what the audience wants. So that has also affected the root of the actual dance. So how do we bring some of those things together so that we can continue to kind of carry on those traditions? Because what you're doing, Chief, as well, in that looking at those stories that people are telling and not for those not to be lost is so essential to the youth of today. So how do we do that and also form an appreciation for traditional dances? But I do think in Uganda, it's because we have those national festivals that does definitely help with students feeling empowered.
Jill, I just wanted to pick up on something you said, the power of festivals as well as competitions, you know, to give an urge to arts and culture education. And I have a friend on this platform who runs the biggest, you know, secondary school drama competition, you know, Heritage of Africa, and they travel around the country, they bring schools together. And I think that that's one of the ways that we've also been able to preserve, even as, you know, through the curriculum, we lost, you know, arts and culture education, but through these competitions, because there were prizes and there were incentives, the schools were more willing to let their students engage in it. And so I thought I'd mention what Gladstone and his team are doing back in Ghana through the Heritage of Africa Theatre Competition.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We have run out of time, but for those who are staying, I just want to give Dr. Simba a chance to make a comment or pose a question, if she'd still like to before we close off.
Hi, Divini. I'm just seeing the time that it's run out. I was going to ask our two lovely presenters to reflect on it's Africa Day in 3 days. If they have any message in terms of using the arts as a way of building solidarity across the continent. But everything else I can connect with the World Council next week. So yeah, that was my
thank you.
questions.
Thank you. I think it's a great question, and if the presenters would like to answer, please go ahead.
Let me go first so that we have we give the last word to Jill. Well, yeah, I mean, happy Africa Day to everyone. I mean, I am totally convinced that arts and culture is going to be the fulcrum in which we're going to build change in Africa. Politicians have failed us. Yeah, economists have failed us. Our religious leaders have failed us. I think the artist is the one element still standing that is going to be the fulcrum of change for the continent. And I can already see that in real life, in changing mindsets, in changing attitudes, in changing perceptions, but as well as in creating, major economic opportunities. Our natural resources have been exploited not to our advantage. And so now we're entering a golden age in African culture and arts. Are we going to sit down and also wait for that to also be exploited, not to our advantage? And so I think that I'm very excited about what is going to happen in Africa's creative space when I link up to my colleagues, all around the continent. I think then the next 10 to 20 years, what we do would determine the fate of the continent. And I hope that we will not feel. I am pretty much confident in arts. And I think that art so far is the biggest unifier. So African Union failed in uniting Africa, since our independence. But where we find the most unity is through our art. And I think that if governments focused a bit more on that, put a bit more resources, if philanthropy put a bit more, because we don't have patrons for the arts in Africa. And so a lot of us have had to become creative entrepreneurs, are still bootstrapping to get our projects off the ground. And so once we begin to direct funds into arts and culture, it will maximize the benefits that we can derive out of it for the continent. And so yeah, let's see what happens in the next decade and two.
Thank you. Jill? Would you like
Yes,
to
thanks
end it?
for the question. And again, happy Africa Day in 3 days. So thanks for reminding us of that. Also, I do believe that conversations like this are helpful because it's connecting people across Africa and finding out that we're doing or trying to initiate similar things. I do also agree with Chief that we've tried so many other initiatives, and I do think that the arts connect people. When you bring a group of artists together, you will see that there is this instant connection based on a similar lived experience, which is either you're an actor, you're a dancer, you're a producer, you're a director. There are similar things that we're all doing. So it cuts across a lot of, we don't need that much dialogue because we have a mutual understanding based on what we are doing. And I do think that I do think that the arts are an incredible resource in Africa, and that it does need to be, artists need to be empowered, and they need to be financially independent, and they need to be the movers for this next generation, because I do think that with social media and with the exposure that young people can have these days, I do believe that it is a way to change the world. It sounds quite large and grandiose, but I do believe that it does have the ability to impact people on a very significant level.
Definitely. Thank you. Thank you to both of our speakers today. I see we do have a hand raised, but we've run out of time. But luckily, next week, we have our ICC in Africa working group. And there's a registration link that has been posted in the chat. So hopefully you're able to join us so that we are able to continue this discussion on this topic. And just a few more reminders, our next webinar is with Janet Jobson, the CEO of the Leah and Desmond Tutu Foundation, on nurturing hope in challenging times, how we build courageous leadership for humanity. And then also just a reminder about our UNESCO Chair for Intercultural Competence conference happening in Rabat from the 29th of September to the 2nd of October. And this is just some of our important dates on registration for our conference. So we hope to see many of you joining us for our conference this year. And also just to say thank you to our UNESCO Chair team for, coming together and putting this webinar series together. So thank you to everyone, and we hope to see you next week and again for our next webinar. And also thank you to Christina, who helped facilitate this discussion. It's been really great. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Really, it's been a pleasure. And looking forward to continue the conversation.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.